Great. Thank you, Owen. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. This is an extraordinary planning meeting of Frome Town Council. I'm Steve Tanner. I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. We want to make our meetings available to as many people as possible, regardless of whether they are. So we use a hybrid setup of here in person in the Town Hall chamber and online via Zoom. For those in the room, a little housekeeping. The emergency exit is to the rear of the room and the assembly point is in the car park. That's the exit on the far corner. Toilets can be accessed at the end of the corridor on the right-hand side, and there is an accessible toilet to the right of the lift. Any panelists on Zoom, please use the electronic raise hand by clicking on the participants button at the bottom of your screen. For those in the room, please raise your hand. Attendees on Zoom, please post questions through the Q&A board. Attendees' names will become visible on the questions board for the record as your question is answered. For those attendees in the room, again, please raise your hand. Tonight, Owen's going to clerk. Jane's going to manage the questions board and participant settings. The meeting is recorded for minuting purposes, and we also live stream for our YouTube channel. We operate what we call a safe space for all participants here in the chamber, and we ask that everyone respects everyone else's views and why they're here, and please don't just shout out questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We use the microphones for all questions because if you don't use the microphone, the people online can't hear what you say. We have two large applications here tonight, which is unusual, but that's just the way it goes. So if I could start with, if you could just raise your hand. We have two. The first one we're going to talk about is the Oldford application. If you could just raise your hand if you're here for the Oldford application, please. Right. And for the Birchill Lane, just so I've got an idea. Excellent. Okay, so we're going to start with the Oldford application first. I'm going to ask the applicants to do a small presentation, and Owen will do some as well. If you want to raise a question, as I say, please raise your hand. If your question has been answered already by someone else, please just move on to the next question, or let us move on to the next question. Otherwise, we just end up going over the same question time and time again. We have to do a little bit of housekeeping on the agenda first. So if there's any questions, comments and information from public or councillors not regarding the two applications we're talking about? No, great. Item 2 on the agenda, to agree apologies for absence received.
We've received apologies from Councillor Fiona Barrows and Councillor Philip Campagna.
Great, if we could all just acknowledge that. Thank you very much.
And that's unanimous. Thank you.
Item number 3, any declarations of members' interests? Yeah, okay, Mark.
With regards to the application for Oldford, as it affects Stonebridge, I own a house on Stonebridge. It's in a cul-de-sac off the main road, but it's in that area, so I should declare that. And it's on the register of members' interests.
Okay, thank you very much. Item number 4, to consider major plan applications received. As I said, we'll start with the Oldford one. So over to Owen, I think.
Thanks, Steve. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Okay, so this is FTC agenda number 895. This is the land at Winsbatch Lane, Oldford, Frome. It's an outline application with all matters reserved except means of access for a development of up to 360 homes. This includes land for community facility, public open space, play areas, allotment, and sustainable drainage. The site is split into two halves. There's a permeability break for vehicles between the north and south side, and walking and cycling routes are included. The parameter plans that I'll show shortly set the framework for future reserved matters. So here is the master plan. It's indicative only, and you can see detailed on the plan the pedestrian routes going through the site with the brown hash line there. 2 play areas indicated in yellow, You can see the allotment space to the west of the site. This is orientated slightly wrong to fit it on the page. North is to the left of the screen there. We've got sustainable drainage going through the site. So there's various soakaways through there. You can see the housing areas indicated in the brown colour. And the access points are shown with the red arrows and the pedestrian access in the blue arrows. To the north of the site, south of the site, you've got, oh no, I've got that the wrong way around actually, haven't I? It's the other way around. Ignore the north-south thing. So to the north of the site, you've got a large park area, which is included in part of the scheme. Here's the parameter plan. So this is fixed at this outline planning application stage. So this is the, what the officers will be deciding this outline on. Again, you can see the access points there again. So just to outline, we've had a few consultee comments that are significant, including from Highways, who've suggested that a period of 6 months should be taken to allow further information, and comments from the lead local flooding authority, who are also asking for further information prior to deciding this application. Nevertheless, we thought it was important to bring this meeting forward to hear people's views. Another comment from the planning policy officer suggests concern in respect to landscape values, but does not offer an objection or no objection. Again, highlights that these issues need to be addressed. And there are some questions around transport that have been raised. There's a transport assessment included in part of the outline plan, which includes impact on traffic at various nodes. That's it.
Great, thank you very much, Owen. I think Jenny, on behalf of the applicant, would like to introduce along with Alex. Yeah, that's fine.
Is it working? Good evening, everyone. My name's Jenny Davis, and I'm from Barwood Land, and we're the people that have submitted the planning application on this land. I don't have a formal presentation plan this evening. This is mainly as we've only just submitted the planning application and we haven't received all the consultee responses back as yet. So it is likely that the scheme will develop over the next few months, and this won't be the first meeting that we attend here. So really, it's just an introduction to us and the scheme. However, as you're aware, we have submitted this planning application for 360 dwellings and land for a community facility, public open space and other supporting infrastructure. I think it's worth just whizzing through a few things that we've noted from the various consultation responses received to date. I think a number of people have questioned, I suppose, why we've submitted the planning application at this time, and have acknowledged the fact that it isn't an allocated site. Essentially, what is the current Mendip local plan is considered out of date, and the Somerset Council were unable to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply. So the policies which relate to the location, quantum and distribution of housing growth within that local plan are no longer valid or can no longer be given full weight. So in line with the national policy position, which is in the NPPF, there is a presumption in favour of sustainable development. And also the new plan for Somerset is only at the very early stages and it's unlikely to be adopted for a number of years. I think it's 2028, 2029 for that plan to come forward. So there is a bit of a policy vacuum at the moment, which is why we have decided to submit a planning application now rather than necessarily waiting for that new local plan to come forward. One thing I also did want to really quickly address is I noted that a number of consultees have suggested that a previous planning application was refused on the site. I'm not really sure where that's come from, and I just wanted to say that no previous planning application has been made on this site by either us or any other developer. We did submit an EIA screening request to the council in 2024, but this was just really asking the council, if we were to submit a planning application, whether that required what we call an environmental impact assessment. And the council basically just confirmed to us that no, an EIA would not be required if we submitted a planning application. So we've just submitted a planning application on that basis. So just to be clear, there's been no previous planning application refused on this site. So I hope this is a fair reflection, but having gone through the various consultee responses, I believe the chief concerns at the moment are highways, flood risk along Windsbatch Lane, impact on services and a few other matters. So in terms of highways, Alex is here with me today. He's from PJA and they're our transport consultants for this scheme. And Alex will be on hand to answer any questions. Alex is going to hopefully get a train back to Bristol at about 8:15. So I would say that once I just finished going through this, if perhaps we could direct any highway questions to Alex in the first half of this meeting, just so he can get away and make his train. Unfortunately, in terms of flood and drainage, our consultant has been unable to attend this evening. We are fully aware of the concerns of Windsbatch Lane residents, and whilst I won't be able to respond to the technical questions that you may have regarding flooding, you'll probably already be aware that the lead local flood authority, I can't say it, they've made some comments to our planning application and they've essentially asked for a lot of additional information regarding flood risk. And this includes some additional infiltration testing and some hydraulic modelling. So I'm in the process of commissioning this work at the moment, and we've also asked the LLFA if they'll meet with us to discuss the scope of this additional work. I would therefore suggest that perhaps detailed drainage questions are maybe parked for this meeting, and then once we've gone back, amended the drainage strategy, we'll come back and have a detailed meeting where I'll have our drainage expert with me and they can answer any detailed questions that you might have on the drainage. I hope that's acceptable. I'm also aware that Windsbatch Lane residents, those who have houses adjacent to the site, are concerned about the security and privacy from those using the northern green space. We are proposing a buffer and are just developing the details of that buffer at the moment. So again, I'd be keen to have a conversation with our case officer, which we haven't had a chance to do yet. But I'd suggest we have some targeted consultation with local residents of Windsbatch Lane once the application has progressed a bit more, and it might make sense to do that at the same meeting as the drainage, because I appreciate drainage and that issue is the biggest concerns probably for Windsbatch Lane residents. And that's really all I had to say. So I'd say open the floor to questions on highways.
Okay. I'm just going to ask, before you thank you, sir, but I'm just going to ask David on behalf of Berkeley Parish to start, if that's all right. I think that makes sense to everybody. Behind you, David. Oh.
Hello. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'd like to make more of a statement, actually, rather than asking any questions. Good evening, everybody. For all those that don't know me, my name's David Lee. I'm here as a Berkeley Parish Councillor and a concerned Old Ford resident. This application seeks outline planning permission with all matters reserved except for means of access. I think, as Jenny's already pointed out, the site in question is not allocated within any adopted plans and is in fact in conflict with, amongst others, local plan policies CP1 and CP2. As such, this application is effectively a speculative strategic housing proposal, which in our view constitutes an inappropriate and unsustainable urban expansion into open countryside, resulting in the coalescence of Frome and Old Ford, a totally unacceptable concept which would have a major impact on the character and appearance of the area. Berkeley Parish Council was appointed a planning consultancy to act on its behalf and represent the views of parishioners. They've identified a significant number of robust and evidence-based objections. I will not be going into every detail of our objections, but I want to instead focus primarily on the issue of sustainability. This is a key factor in determining whether or not the development should be approved. The NPPF have determined that where the council cannot demonstrate a 5-year housing supply, the presumption in favour of sustainable development applies. Under a Freedom of Information request, it was revealed that Somerset Council advised Barwood during pre-application discussions that, due to a shortfall in the 5-year housing supply, any application would, in their words, in all likelihood be determined in accordance with NPPF paragraph 11. I appreciate that you're all aware that engaging paragraph 11 does not create an automatic presumption in favour of development. However, the presumption does only support sustainable development. Any proposal that is, for example, poorly located in relation to services and infrastructure cannot reasonably be regarded as sustainable. This particular site was promoted in the recent call for sites and deemed unsuitable by Somerset Council for allocation, who determined the site as being in an unsustainable location with limited access to local services, poor connectivity, poor access to public transport, and being a significant distance from Frome Town Centre, which would result in car-dependent households, contrary to the objectives of sustainable development. The site was identified as performing poorly in terms of accessibility, with only bus stops located within a 10-minute walk, and most other everyday facilities between 20 and 30 minutes walk away. We also have concerns regarding highway safety. The proposed development will be accessed via Gypsy Lane, 2 new junctions on Old Ford Hill, and 2 pedestrian and cycle access points in Whitechapel Lane. The closure of the Gypsy Lane B3090 junction means all traffic which currently uses this junction will be diverted through the estate. Any traffic accessing the rugby club or the Pines Gypsy Camp coming to Frome from the north will be directed through the new estate first. This is going to mean a greatly increased risk to all pedestrians, particularly children, especially bearing in mind that there are 2,500 additional daily vehicular movements forecast. The visibility displays at the access points on Old Ford Hill, particularly the upper one, seem quite dangerous due to the restricted visibility. And it should be remembered that a lot of trees and foliage will need to be destroyed in the process. Also of particular concern are the 2 access points into the park via Winsbatch Lane. There is no car parking provision for park visitors, so there's likely to be parked cars blocking the lane or parking on residents' properties. The site is well known to suffer from flooding on a regular basis due to poor drainage, which has also been noted by the LLFA in their consultation response. Their view is that the extent of surface water flooding has been underestimated in Barwood's application, and that further modelling is required, as Jenny said, before the impacts can be fully understood. Residents of Winsbatch Lane are only too aware of the excess water runoff from the fields, which run down the lane and which they experience whenever it rains. I sent both Barwood and Frome Town Council a video of the flooding, which was in excess of 300 millimetres at the junction of Winsbatch Lane and the B3090. I also sent a video of the surface water running down the lane after a normal day's rain. You will have clearly seen that the lane is unsafe for use by pedestrians. There's no pavements, no street lighting, no parking spaces, and is subject to frequent flooding. The lower access point has no pavement connecting the entrance to the B3090, where the pedestrians would access the site, while the entrance itself is on a blind 90-degree bend, totally unsafe for pedestrians. There have been many examples of minor traffic collisions on this lane, luckily none of which were serious enough to warrant reporting. Cars and pedestrians using the same road do not normally mix well. The development cannot be taken in isolation. The decision on Selwood Garden Community is expected shortly, and according to any well-informed authority, is highly likely to be given the go-ahead. So any effects the development has on Froom's infrastructure will be greatly compounded by an additional 1,700 houses on Froom's periphery. Unfortunately, none of this has been considered in this application. To sum up, Somerset Council have stated in their pre-app advice that NPPF paragraph 11 will likely determine this application. If the tilted balance is engaged, the presumption will only support sustainable development. Somerset Council have already determined that this development is poorly located in relation to services, infrastructure, and accessibility. As such, it will be car dependent and therefore cannot reasonably be regarded as sustainable. We've shown that some of the access points are unsafe and some would argue downright dangerous. It is appreciated that Barwood is attempting to provide these pedestrian and cycle access points on Whitechapel Lane to improve connectivity and support sustainability. However, the concern remains that these locations are unsafe. The likelihood of Selwood Garden Community gaining approval has not been taken into account. The Old Ford development cannot be taken in isolation. Will Froom's infrastructure be able to cope with both developments? The shorter answer is no, they won't. Our view is that a new development is not needed nor wanted in this location. It is outside the plan area of the Froome neighbourhood plan. The adopted strategy for Froome revolves around the town centre and the Saxon Vale site. Over 750 people signed a petition objecting to the development. About 60 people have submitted objections on the planning portal. The case officer today advised me that they are behind posting objections, so this number will only go up. Should Froome Town Council support this unsustainable application, it will only encourage speculative developments in unplanned locations in the area. We are confident that Froome Town Council will be listening to the wishes of local residents when determining their position on this development. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, David. Jen, that was more of a statement than questions.
I did say it was a
Yeah.
statement.
If you could send us a copy of that, it would be very, very useful. Yeah, thank you very much. Right, I'm going to open it. There's a gentleman at the front here, but his hand up first. So. No, I think he's answered my question. Oh, okay, excellent. Thank you very much. So, gentleman next to you then. The microphone.
Yes, sorry, is the microphone
It's on?
working?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm the planner for CPRE Somerset, and our trustees have asked me to come along and say a few words this evening. We are about to submit our objection, and our reasons in summary are as follows.
It is working. It is working, yeah.
All right. First of all, as we've heard, the site isn't allocated for development in the local plan. It was rejected in the Part 2 limited update in February 24 because, as we've heard, it's too distant from the town centre and there's limited access to local services. It would be a car-dependent estate. Secondly, we, CPRE, have huge concerns about protecting the landscape setting of this historic Somerset market town. In November 24, Somerset Council commissioned a Somerset landscape sensitivity assessment, assessing the sensitivity of land surrounding key settlements, including land around Froome. This site falls within assessment parcel FR4, which wraps around the north of Froome from the junction of Spring Gardens and Cuckoo Lane to the west, across to the land beyond Commerce Park to the east. And this sensitivity assessment concludes that development should be avoided on the rolling western side of this parcel. This is where the site is in, and development should be confined to the less sensitive flat eastern side between the A361 and Berkeley Lane. And it says that that approach will protect the historic field pattern of the western side, which is characterized by small, medium-scale fields with mature hedgerows. Furthermore, it indicates the site area is very prominent in the landscape as it rises up to the ridge. So we, CPRE, will be saying this is contrary to the landscape policies of MENDIP, DP1 and DP4. Next, just another point. We notice that a lot of the objections online refer to the difficulty of getting GP appointments and oversubscribed schools. Now, the government is insisting on an infrastructure-first approach, and it intends that GP surgery, schools and transport infrastructure should be planned and delivered alongside or before new housing developments. And we don't see any evidence that such community infrastructure can support all this development that's going on. And I think lastly, we would say that this scale of development should be in the emerging local plan. We think this planning application is premature. The government is saying that it's shifting towards a more plan-led system. Well, that's why development on this scale should be in the emerging local plan.
Okay, thank you for that. Can I ask if anyone's got any specific transport-related questions, please? Because as I know Alex has got to go. That lady at the back with your hand up, you're right in front of me.
Thank you. Thank you. David's touched a little bit on the traffic in what he said, so I won't go into detail of some of what I wanted to say. But the biggest thing, I'm a resident of Stonebridge, and the traffic at peak times is, to be honest, it's not sustainable. I mean, on a regular basis, we have traffic whizzing along at quite some speed despite the speed bumps, but also we have traffic parked right up to the roundabouts. And only this morning, there's a car 10 feet from the roundabout, somebody's putting a child in the car and people swing round, and it is only a miracle that nobody's been hurt. And I think certainly this development can't be taken in isolation, because we have the only secondary school, we have a theatre, we have a leisure centre, and just on the other side, one of the two middle schools. So when you've got a development like Selwa Gardens going ahead with 1,700 homes, it's not within walking distance or sustainable travel. And there are going to be a lot of people that are going to come to this area to drop their children off. And it just generally is not sustainable. These are residential streets, not thoroughfares. And knowing what people are like, they will go via the bypass, they'll go through town, and it's just exponentially going to increase the traffic without even considering the Oldford development. So I think from a safety point of view, it's just not sustainable.
Okay, thank you very much.
I would like just add one more thing, is I've seen draft drawings that Barwood released at the end of last year, which show changes to Stonebridge, Beaconsfield Way, Rodden Road, which isn't directly adjacent to the area, and I think a couple of things near the station. It was hardly mentioned in their plans, and I would like to ask why these weren't released with their actual submission.
Okay, I'm going to I know Richard's got some transport questions as well. If I can take Richard's as well and then get Alex to answer them all in one go, is that okay? Yeah, I'm sure he will answer it. I just want to do it all together. So, Richard.
Hello, Richard Hammonds, speaking on behalf of Frome Civic Society. If I can make this is mainly a statement rather than questions. So, Frome Civic Society broadly thinks this site is suitable for development, but we do have some grave concerns on this application. It's outside the local plan, and thus no cross-border consultation with Wiltshire or Baines has been made which will be impacted by this development. They claim this development has a density of 36 dwellings per hectare. So help me with the maths here. 360 dwellings on a 36 per hectare means the site must be 10 hectares in size. However, the development site is actually 34 hectares, of which 24.6, this piece here, is to be built on. This gives a very low housing density of 14.63 dwellings per hectare. Compare this to the average of 27.9 on the sites to the south of Frome. Clearly, this is a plan for spacious executive homes with big gardens on tree-lined avenues. Perhaps not the modestly priced housing that Frome needs. We could perhaps get...
Sorry to interrupt. Can you do the transport bit first? Because I don't want to lose what the lady said as well, if that's okay.
Fine.
We can come back to other points as well, but
Thank you.
I'd like to just focus on the transport for this point, if that's okay.
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
The transport assessment cherry-picks two areas as comparable sites, South Frome and the countryside surrounding Frome. South Frome includes the Mount and the Marston Industrial Estate, areas of relatively low low car ownership. The countryside around Frome has high car ownership levels, but many people here work at home or are farmers who work from home. Thus, by cherry-picking these two areas, they are significantly underestimating the volume of traffic emanating from this development. We think the most comparable area is Stonebridge and Packsaddle, but they argue it's not similar at all. Why? How? The 2011 census shows car sharing in Frome happens 6% of the time. In their tables, they are for the trip generation, they're assuming it is happening 50% of the time. Really, what a change in travel patterns. No explanation why. Again, this dramatically reduces traffic volumes. In Stonebridge and Packsaddle, 78% of people commute to work by car. If we assume that each property, on average, has one person commuting to work, 360 at 78% is 281 car trips in the peaks. They're claiming 25. Whilst this site is walkable into town, schools and the medical centre, the supermarkets are a drive away. Properties on the edge of Frome typically have 2 or more cars. Let's not underestimate the traffic volumes this development will create. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Is there any other transport-related questions before I ask Alex? I've got a lady at the back there.
Thank you. I live on the Stonebridge estate, and I don't know if you're aware, in the mornings it gets very busy with people going to school, to the college, etc. Now, last week or the week before, I actually attended about the 2-tier system that they're proposing and talking to people about, as opposed to the 3-tier system we've got at the moment. They also said it was likely to be all on the Stonebridge estate, which with traffic down there, traffic coming there, how are we going to get out to go take children to school or go anywhere or go to work? So, and also, why is it called Ode Ford, do you think? Because it's got lots of water in the past and we're getting more than water now. That will affect the transport, and we've got one way in and one way out. So what are we, I don't understand why you want to put so many houses there, and as they say, it floods. How are people meant to go? My granddaughter goes to Beckington School. Just imagine trying to get round there in the morning. Primary schools, they're trying to increase the primary schools to make these other schools work.
Okay.
So my concern is a lot about the traffic, but when I also think about hearing about the sort of houses that are going to be on there, we're supposed to be about affordable housing. If you look at the Stonebridge estate, I know many people that started with those flats. You know where the flats are, down the bottom, then went to a terrace, like I've gone back to a terrace, then gone to semis or whatever, and we got those nice little green bits in there, which are lovely. But that will all be compromised if you let traffic come all the way through there and have all those houses. I don't know, and as you all say, GPs, I know I'm going off, but it's all of it.
Okay, thanks very much for your comments. Was it Adam, wasn't it? You had your hand up. And then I'm going to get Alex to explain from the developer's perspective.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm a Frome resident and Somerset councillor for Frome North, which this site is including, as well as the Frome side as well. And I've got lots of concerns, of course, and I've heard it on Zoom, and there's lots of issues and lots of potential objections to this, but including coalescence between the two settlements, and it's going to be greatly reduced, and the character of the area and so on, open countryside. But traffic related, two questions really. How does the developer propose to manage, mitigate, reduce the traffic impact of the development on Stonebridge particularly, and the traffic going to and from the college, particularly in the mornings and so on, which is the peak time? There are queues there. And secondly, the new proposed access just to the north of the Gypsy Lane junction, I'm assuming that has a visibility display agreed with the Somerset Council Highways. What's the impact of loss of trees because of that junction having to be there? I'm assuming it's taking out a whole swathe of trees along the line of the road, and doesn't that have quite a large impact on the character, the rural character of the separation between Frome and Alford? Those two questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Adam. Alex, over to you, if I may.
Okay, can everyone hear me? So I'm Alex. I work at PGA, so I'm, for better or for worse, the author of the transport assessment. So I'll just try and run through some of the queries you've raised. I think the main one seems to be concerns over traffic in Stonebridge, especially for people living in that area. One thing that's, I think, is important to bear in mind is we're trying to make the case that the location of site is sustainable, in that its proximity to a number of amenities and services in Stonebridge negate the need to travel by car for a lot of journeys. So the fact that there are schools for different age pupils, the fact that there's a local centre with a Tesco Express and other things. We know that journeys, the National Travel Survey for the period between 2015 and 2019, so this is pre-COVID, we know that journeys under a mile, on average, 79% of those are done on foot. So, or on that basis, we'd expect a small number of car journeys to be made between Barwood site and using Stonebridge. Notwithstanding that, as part of the access strategy, we're trying to deter car trips from the site going through Stonebridge, because we're looking to having the two access points on Alford Hill. I mean, it's a more circuitous route to get to any of those locations within Stonebridge. I know there were concerns about people using Beaconsfield Way and Stonebridge Drive as a run through to the Ring Road via Clink Road, which I think is a valid point, in that if you were to look at the centre of the site and what's the quickest way to get to the A3 to the bypass, it perhaps could be through Stonebridge Drive and Clink Road. However, bearing in mind the journeys that you take using the bypass means that you would unlikely use that journey to get to the bypass, because if you're using the bypass, you want to go north towards Bath and Warminster or south for longer journeys. And if you plug that into Google Maps from the centre of the site, you're likely to go onto Alford Hill, north and around. So, that's a bit of context for traffic through Stonebridge. To your point, sir, about the us cherry picking MSOAs. So our chip distribution assessment is based on MSOA 003. So we've actually used the data that you've asked us to use, and the two MSOAs that you refer to as the ones that we've said we've said those aren't representative. So what we've done is we've broken those MSOAs down into their LSOAs, so we can have a more granular look at how trips are distributed through Frome. So yeah, I'd like to reassure you on that. We've taken your suggestion actually of what MSOA to use. So we feel that our chip distribution is representative of the local character.
That's what you're trying to say, but it's not what we actually say in the actual documents. Why refer to the other two areas when you're not in the topic?
I think there's going to be a lot more meetings on this. I mean, as Jenny alluded to, we're still waiting to hear from a lot of consultants. So I think this is the first of a lot of meetings. I don't really want to get bogged down in the to fro. Let's get some questions and answers, and then, we can clarify at further meetings.
Yeah, okay. I think there was another query about cumulative impact, so concerns about the impact of Selwood Garden community with our site's impact on top of that. So I guess I would just like to reassure that as part of our transport assessment work, we undertook traffic surveys in July 2024, which is what was our kind of baseline observed traffic flow situation. As agreed with Somerset, we then worked out what's called a temporary growth factor. So that's using their robust core, the DFT's robust core scenario to uplift that observed traffic up to what is forecast for 2031. So that's based on a plus 5 years from the submission of the planning application. So that roughly works out as 5.1% increase on the baseline traffic. We've taken the traffic flows from Selwood's transport assessment and we applied that on top. So we've gone 2024, 2031, added Selwood's traffic flows, and then we've assessed our development sites traffic on top of that. So with the three scenarios, we've looked at a more robust scenario 1, as well as a more vision-led scenario 2 and 3. So we feel we've been robust in that instance, and we've assessed the junctions as per the scope agreed with Somerset through pre-application discussions. So I'd like to reassure people in this room on that point. With regards to concerns over the proportion of car sharing, that data is all drawn from the National Travel Survey. So we've not tried to inflate that proportion at all to try and suppress vehicle trips. It's all, I can provide evidence for those proportions, and it varies for different distance bands. So, but I'm happy to explain that at a later date. And I think finally, the gentleman's point about the Severn access point and the visibility displays, we do accept that there would be some vegetation loss to achieve a safe access at that point. But based on the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit that is there at present, and that we wish to kind of extend along the length of the site on Oldford Hill, we can achieve that 2.4 by 43 metres as required by Manual for Streets and the design guidance that Somerset would request. So
I've got a few questions and I'll speak a bit later. We met earlier on, we walked along Beaconsfield Way. You were explaining some traffic calming measures that you intend to impose upon Beaconsfield Way and probably Stonebridge Drive. Can you explain to the audience what you intend to do there?
Yeah, sure. And I also, there was a query about plans not being submitted in the with the transport assessment.
I'm really concerned that people haven't been able to make determine what is going to affect them, because the plans weren't submitted in this time around.
Sure. So I think as with the planning submission, the more detailed drawings of the site accesses were included as separate drawings. Appended to our transport assessment, does include those drawings. So perhaps they can be circulated, but those concept plans, which are still up for discussion with Somerset, those can be made available, I'm sure. To the councillor's point about traffic calming and measures to improve walking and cycling in Stonebridge, from the site, what we've tried to do is looking at Somerset's road user hierarchy, so trying to deter people from using the private car and promoting walking, wheeling and cycling. That explains the access strategy where we're trying to make it much easier for people to travel north-south between the site and either Aldford to the north and Stonebridge to the south. Some of the measures we're proposing that Bar would either deliver or help or contribute towards would be things like they're called continuous footways. So where you've got Beaconsfield Way, as consider that the major arm of the road, and you've got lots of side road junctions coming off of that, we're proposing continuous footways across the side roads, which would mean that if you had a visual impairment or reduced mobility, it means that you don't have to drop off the pavement or the footway across the carriageway and then back onto the footway to cross a side road. So that makes it much easier to walk across those side roads. So that's helping to promote people walking from the site towards, Tesco's or the community college or some of the schools. We're also looking to, in places, reduce the width of the carriageway to 6 metres, which is still wide enough to accommodate the two-way flow of traffic throughout. But we know that the carriageway width is correlated with speed. So if you can reduce the width of the carriageway lanes, people are more likely to drive slower. And the additional benefit of that is an additional benefit of that is carriageway lanes which are wider than 3 metres encourages drivers to try and overtake cyclists. Whereas if you reduce the width of the lanes, drivers are less likely to try and overtake a cyclist. So it helps to calm the traffic environment, which benefits people on a cycle. And it also tries to deter motorists from trying to overtake. Further to that, we have suggested that Beaconsfield Way and Stonebridge Drive is probably suitable for a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, which would help make the environment safer for walking and cycling. And what else is there? We're suggesting that the junction between Beaconsfield Way and Stonebridge Drive could be raised to kind of calm traffic at that junction and make it easier for pedestrians and cyclists to navigate that junction if they're making journeys right back towards the college or wherever Tesco's is. So as part of that, it's kind of, as well as the site access strategy, there's kind of a package of improvements that there's an opportunity to deliver as part of the scheme, which would benefit not only the people who live on the site, but also people who live in the Stonebridge area to be able to walk, to some of their local amenities and to undertake local journeys. Does that answer your question?
Just grab the mic for me, please, just so the people online can hear you.
There is also Gypsy Lane is called, the name's on the tin, but there's also currently a planning application to increase the number of pitches at the Pines.
Pines, yeah.
And I believe they can have a mobile caravan, a static caravan and 2 parking spaces. I don't know if you've ever seen them take one of their static caravans in. It's an absolute nightmare, even along Gypsy Lane. So by removing the access to Gypsy Lane, should there need to be any transport of static caravans, that is either got to go through the new development or down through Beaconsfield Way and, off from there. So you are actually potentially creating a problem. Even if it doesn't get planning permission, it still does occasionally happen. Yeah. So what do you propose in that scenario?
So the new access road would serve as a highways betterment compared to the existing arrangement. So if they wanted to travel to those patches, they'd still be able to access them as...
You are suggesting a massive static caravans that are on large vehicles go through residential streets? Yeah, they come in on...
Well, they'd have to make that journey now on Gypsy Lane at present anyway.
Yes, but Gypsy Lane is literally, I know it's a lane and it causes problems, but it's direct access onto the B3090. If you remove that, you are then putting these very large vehicles, and I know it doesn't happen very often, but you are putting them through the new estate or down through Beaconsfield Way, Stonebridge, etc. And you're also saying that you're planning on narrowing the streets. So you're actually creating potentially a huge problem.
We haven't heard from Somerset Highways on this, and that's the sort of thing that they would pick up. So I think when Somerset Highways respond, if they haven't picked that up, that is something that we can actually say, have you taken this into account? So we'll make a note of that. As I say, we haven't actually heard from Somerset Highways on this application yet. This is just sort of a meeting to get things right.
I mean, I believe there are 35 pitches at the moment. I think we want to double them.
I saw the application come through, so, yeah. Yeah, please do.
Just warm up. There we go. There was a question about the loss of the trees because of creating the splay. I heard you refer to, yes, there'll be a loss of some greenery, but vegetation. Can we quantify how many mature trees we're losing as a result of this?
So a tree survey has been submitted as part of the planning application, and I can't tell you the exact amount that are coming out, but the vast majority of the trees along that Oldford Hill boundary, they've been categorised as category U. They're in very poor condition, and this is mainly because the vast majority of them are ash, and they're suffering from ash dieback. So I think the vast majority of the trees that are coming out are these very poor quality ash dieback trees, which would have to come out, over the years in any event. So I suppose we are taking them out to provide the accesses, but we will be re-providing more trees than we're going to take out throughout the whole of the development.
Replace mature trees with new ones,
But they
not
are,
the same.
They are dead trees, effectively, is what I'm saying. They're not category A or B. They do need to come out regardless of whether this development happened or not.
Okay.
I'm going to throw, Adam, I want to move on to other issues.
It's the National Highways response. Have you mentioned that already?
Yeah, that was mentioned at the start.
Okay.
We weren't here, I think, yeah. Is there any other questions for either Alex? Well, hopefully we've covered transport for tonight, but for Jenny, lady at the back, Elaine.
I didn't think I was going to be asking anything about this application, but I'm just curious, can you clarify for a matter of clarification, have Land Value Alliance been involved in this at all? Okay,
No.
thank you.
Alex, I think if you want to get your train,
That'd be great.
now is a good time. Okay.
See you again soon.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll see you again soon. Richard, you had some other points you wanted to raise. Thanks for coming, Alex, and hope you get your train.
Yes, so thank you. So to continue, regards the housing density, very low. Clearly, they plan spacious exec homes with big gardens. As I say, not the modestly priced housing that Frome needs. If this development was at the same density as those to the south of Frome, you'd be adding 687 houses to Frome, and that's still retaining the 9.4 hectare park. They also want building heights of 3 stories at 3 metres per floor. To be in keeping with Stonebridge, the building height should be limited to 2.5 stories at 2.7 metres per store. They want big ceilings as well as big houses. This site has been designed as 2 cul-de-sacs. What if one access gets blocked? A connecting road through the site should be included. Surface water drainage, already mentioned, is another big issue. This is very similar geology to the sites that we're going to discuss next and to the south of Frome. The freeboard on the attenuation basins is designed at 300 millimetres, not the recommended 500 millimetres. And these will all drain through into the River Frome near Great Bridge on the Luddington Road. an area very prone to flooding. Please can Frome Town Council call this application into Planning Committee East and insist that it is considered after the Selwood Garden community decision has been announced, so that the cumulative impacts can be taken into account. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, with regards to Selwood Garden community, I think from what we heard from the Secretary of State, that will be by the 8th of April, given that the LLFA and Highways haven't responded on this. I think it's safe to assume that we'll know about that before this. Okay. Jenny, do you want to come back on any of those points?
In terms of housing density, I mean, we're not proposing executive homes on this site. I can't remember what the density, after just looking through the design access statement, see if I can find the density, but because of the levels, it's probably a bit deceptive as to what you could provide. I think the density is roughly about 37 dwellings per hectare. I mean, obviously the site is a lot bigger because we've got that large swathe of open space to the north. But it's certainly not a low density scheme. And it is 30% affordable housing, and that the size of those units are dictated by the council, and much of those will be 1 and 2 bed units. So I wouldn't say it's going to be an executive development by any means.
So the whole site is 34 hectares. Okay. The site to where the green park is 9.4 hectares. So the balance must be 24.6.
Yes, but there's large swathe of green space down that and the centre.
So just looking at the developed space to the south of the site, and compare that to the developed sites to the south of Frome, which also include all the attenuation ponds and the green areas and the playing areas, etc. Their density there is 27.9. Yours is, where was the number? Yours is 14.63. It's practically half.
What I could offer is, because I'm pretty confident that it is about 37 DPH.
You claim that?
No. What I'm saying is I could provide you with a plan which provides the density for each of the parcels, if that would help.
So your claim at 36 DPA is basically ignoring the roads, it's ignoring the attenuation basins, it's ignoring all of the green space, and it's only looking at the housing built area, which is 10 hectares in an area of 24.
Yeah.
That's how you get your number, but it is a bit misleading. And when you compare it, on a like-for-like basis with the south of Frome, it's half.
But the developable area, like the parcels, they are 36, 37 DPH. So, like I said, they're not executive home parcels. They're a normal, healthy mix of housing sizes.
Maybe, but the south of Frome is very similar to this. It's on a slope. It's got flooding issues, the same as this. The geology is the same, practically the same slope.
Yeah, as
half the housing.
I'm more than happy to provide a better density plan if that's helpful. I'm trying to think what else was mentioned. Sorry. There was a mention about landscape sensitivity. And just to say that I think it was Enderby Associates did an assessment of landscape sensitivity of Frome and effectively said that development in this site was probably the best located area for development within Frome, and that the planning policy officer has recently just provided her comments and said it would be a moderate impact, so not high or significant impact, only moderate. But obviously we haven't had the landscape comments back from the council as yet. And also, just to mention on GPs, the NHS have provided a consultation response, and they effectively said that we would have to provide a contribution in order to provide some physical capacity for GPs, and they've asked for about £250,000 contribution, which would be captured through our Section 106 agreement. So that's what the NHS have asked for. Is there anything else that you...
Actually, Polly's got a few questions.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to say
to thank everyone for their statements and some fantastic points coming across, and it's really very helpful for us to hear. Wish Mr. Hammond had asked the one about the connectivity of the two halves when Alex was here. I just wondered, Jane, if we could note that specific thing down, because it seemed when we had the site visit for it to be quite a positive thing that they weren't connected so that it wasn't used to. I think the aim was to specifically drive the transport through a certain direction, and that point is interesting that it could actually cause a potential problem, them not being connected if one was blocked. So I just wondered if you don't know that, if we could have that answered at a later date. Thank you.
In terms of why we didn't do a connection through, in part it is to manage the traffic flows, as Alex alluded to, but also the site levels do make it quite difficult to join the two. So it was just felt that having a two-access solution was preferable, but with pedestrian and cycle links.
The lady in green wanted to say something, and the gentleman behind her. So.
Thank you. I'm not a public speaker, but I'm very passionate about this because I shall show you where I live. That's my house there, okay? So it affects me greatly, this development, for lots of different reasons. We've talked about Winspatch Lane, which is a lane, it's single-tracked, it's rural, it has a huge amount of traffic down it. We have so many lorries, we have so many tractors, we have so many cars, people use it for lots of different reasons that don't live down the road. So having those paths coming into that lane is dangerous, and I would say highly likely that there will be a death or an injury. I've lived in this space 30 years. I have seen accidents down there. I've seen the amount of bikes that we've got down there at the moment and everything. And if you're encouraging people to go down that road, you're going to have issues, huge issues. Obviously, you mentioned earlier about a buffer. My house is 2 foot away from the edge of this. So all of my privacy will be gone. And I have been deemed 10 metres would be suffice to be able to give me privacy, security, and all the rest of it. I don't think that's acceptable, and I would object deeply for my own security, because I know if it's a park, people will be walking their dogs, there'll be children, there'll be youngsters, there'll be everything else, and I will not be able to stay there because I would be very, very insecure. Okay. I think that's it.
Thank you. Thanks for your points. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm very
raised,
passionate about this because it's very close to me.
Thank you. The gentleman at the back had his hand up, so I'd like to, then I'm going to just take a couple more and then wrap it up, because as I say, we do have another large one to discuss. Sir.
Thank you. It's on Jenny's point about the NHS response to the Oldford Hill development. The document on the planning portal is from the Integrated Care Board, which is based down in Torbay. Now, I'm not suggesting they haven't spoken to any of their planning colleagues this end, but what they've said in that document is that most of the new residents will be using the Beckington family practice. And both sites of the Beckington family practice, the one in the village and the one at Froomfield, are oversubscribed. And the £270,000, I think it was, that the Integrated Care Board have asked for, which is for physical expansion of those two sites. And actually, anybody that uses the Beckington surgery knows that that is in a residential development. It hasn't got room to physically expand, and the parking is absolutely awful. So Torbay Integrated Care Board doesn't really know Frome, and I'd like the councillors to take that on board, please.
we've had this on previous applications, and we do talk to the medical practice quite a lot. I think the expansion would be at the medical practice, but we'll check that out. But thank you very much. Couple more questions. Right, if we could just wrap this up, I've got a couple more questions and then I'm going to have to wrap it up. So, Andrew.
I'll be quick. I'm Andrew Knight. I'm chair of the Berkeley Parish Council. I just wanted to add to David's statement, really, as a general comment, that most people think that new development is sort of NIMBYism, but actually I think most people understand that we do need more housing. But what we've got here is an application by landowners who've retained Barwood as their agents to develop this, and they've done an amazing job in turning what is a totally inappropriate site into something which can be even considered. And the main objection is light spill at night, and also the fact that we're changing the whole perception of Frome and the access to it. There are so many better places to develop. This is just only on behalf of landowners. It's not planned development. It must be refused.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. And this gentleman here had his hand up, and then I'm going to ask Jane to wrap it up.
Hello, I live in Winsbatch Lane. I've got 3 points to make, which I'll be brief on. The pedestrian access is just not going to work. And there's absolutely no point in taking pedestrians that way because there's nowhere to go to. The lower point on the diagram, it's over a mile before you come out at Standerwick near the bell, the other end of the lane. There's nothing else up there. The other way, it's only Beckington, which is over a mile away. So there's no point in having pedestrian access there. Somebody said that it was a 30-mile-an-hour zone on Oldford Hill. It's not. It's 40, and most traffic does 50 going down the hill. The third two things: the data on the Environment Agency site is wrong. So it's no use using that to base planning on. The flooding is much worse, and I've waded knee-deep in that lane. The last thing is that white triangle in the top contains a landfill site. It's the old quarry. It was used for all of Frome's domestic waste in the 60s, plus industrial waste from the Wallington and Western Plastics Factory. And it's unlined and it's not capped. There's only about a foot of earth on top of it. I know this because I know the people that used to own the field. And that's going to be affected by any change in drainage. And that needs to be investigated very thoroughly.
Okay, thanks. As I said at the start, the local lead flood authority they have commented, and that's still in discussion. So we'll probably bring this back to another meeting, in all fairness.
There's no records of that landfill.
We found that out.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, with the landfill, it is recognised in our ground conditions report. It is picked up. So it has been, assessed from our perspective.
Thanks. I'm going to ask Jane to wrap up where we are, if that's okay with you, Jane.
Thanks, Steve. So just for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jane Llewellyn, the Planning and Development Manager for Frome Town Council. And normally at this point in proceedings, I would be recommending a response on behalf of Frome Town Council to our councillors. But I think given what we've heard this evening, especially in terms of there's a lot more information to come, lots of the statutory consultees have asked for more information. It's been really helpful for us to hear all of the residents' concerns, whether that be Frome or Berkeley. And I'm sure that Jenny and the team will also take those concerns away. And we will definitely be having another meeting. And with those responses from Jenny and the team, then, whether they will or they won't resolve your issues, we don't know. But from our point of view, the statutory consultees, particularly in terms of highways, Somerset Highways that is, they will assess whether or not the access and the active travel proposals are sufficient and safe. And we would really want to hear what they've got to say. Same with the local lead flood authority. Nobody can say it, can they? Absolutely nobody can say it. They will assess whether or not the proposals deal with the flood issues sufficiently. And obviously, if it turns out that those issues can't be mitigated, then that's a reason for us to object to the application. We're not in a position where we can do that yet, but we have heard what everybody has said. And I think, as was stated at the beginning, that National Highways have asked for a 6-month pause before any decision is issued. So it may be a while before we can come back with all that information. But in some respects, I think that gives us the opportunity and the time to get all that information together and come back again and again, if necessary, to discuss and hear all your concerns. So unless councillors disagree, I'm not actually proposing that we come up with any recommendation at this point in time. Agreed.
Yeah. Mark, want to say something?
Mark Dorrington, from Town Council. I'm just going to make a quick comment. As Mr. Knight pointed out, this is the latest proposed development by people who will never build a house. Jenny will never build a house, but she will sell this land to somebody who will once they get planning permission and split the profits with the landowners. That's a perfectly valid business proposition, but that's how it operates. So any plans we see will only be generic. They won't be what the houses will look like. This could all be changed completely. This has happened all over the town. This is what's happened to Selwood Garden community. It happened at Marston Lane, which was defeated at an appeal. I went to appeal and was defeated. It's happening all over the town, and I think people in Frome are getting a bit fed up. They're seeing Frome being the best place in the world to live in the Sunday Times, and people trying to build it out and probably destroy what is making it a very good place to live. The argument we always hear is, well, you're living in a house which was built on green fields. I'm old enough to remember Stonebridge Farm when it was a farm. When I was at grammar school, we played in the derelict farmhouse. So you do live in a field, what was once a field. And so, but that doesn't mean that every field has to be built on. And so I think, we have to draw a line somewhere and say this is where Frome is getting overdeveloped. The irony of us listening to this this application, is the site is entirely within David and Andrew's parish council of Berkeley. But the 370 houses won't be using the facilities that are provided by Berkeley Parish Council, because there aren't any. They'll be using our schools, our doctors, our dentists. And so that has to be addressed. And on another level, my remit as a town councillor, my lead council is for the open spaces, and so at first blush, the provision of a new country park is a very attractive provision. But Jenny's company, or whoever ends up developing this place, will have to work out who's going to pay for the maintenance of that. Our ranges are completely stretched as far as they can go at the moment because of all the land we've taken on from Somerset. So there's going to be more people, more vehicles, more resources needed to run this place, which is being offered as a compensation for developing on all the other fields. So at the moment, I'm going to take a lot of persuading to be supportive of this application, but I just wanted to set my position out first of all. Thank you. This is Tracy Ashford. She's one of your councillors. If you live on Stonebridge, Tracy and Andy represent you on the college ward for Frome Town Council. Tracy's not a member of this committee, so doesn't have a vote or anything. But
I was just wondering how many people here were from Stonebridge rather than from Berkeley, just for my own interest, really, with a show of hands?
So who lives on Stonebridge?
Who lives on Stonebridge or close to Stonebridge that's part of? Okay, I just want to sort of keep up with what's happening in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, this wasn't on the agenda for last week. No, the Birchill site was on the agenda for last week. This one was always for this week. Yeah. Okay. All right. There will be lots more opportunities. Okay.
Just keep an eye on the website. It's a good idea, I think.
Thank you all for coming. We try and listen to everyone's questions. We take them away. We try and get answers. As Jane alluded to, there will be lots more meetings. So thank you all for coming, and I'm sure we'll see you all the faces again as well once we've got answers to the questions and the statutory consultees have come back, and then we can hopefully start to flesh it all out. But thank you for coming. I'm going to take a 5-minute recess, so those who don't want to wait for the next one can go, and then we'll. Okay. Right. Owen, over to you to introduce the next one, please.
Okay, thank you. Agenda number 885. This is land at the Mount not Winsbatch Lane, Birchill Lane. Okay, it's outline application for 120 dwellings, and this has come back in after more information has been submitted. When this came before us before Christmas, we deferred pending further information before submitting formal comments. Key issues which will no doubt be discussed around site access and drainage. So you can see the master plan layout as is on the latest submission. With the site access, as you'll see on a later slide, it's been moved further to the north. And this shows residential areas, water attenuation, and so forth for the site. Birchill Lane is on the boundary to the south. Recent comment from lead local flood authority is that they're waiting.
Nobody can say it, don't worry.
They're waiting for further information in order to fully assess changes made. Highways suggestion was that the width and the elevation of the mount may be unsuitable for a simple priority junction as initially proposed, and that a right turn lane arrangement with associated localised roads widening and a point of access further northward would be preferable, and that is the comment to which this revised information responds. So you can see on the left-hand side there the original location of the access to the site, and the revised to the right. And zoomed out there, you can see the original on the left-hand side, and the revised to the right. We have Chris Marsh here from the developer, who has some slides that he'd wish to speak to. Do you want to do that from up here? Yeah, take a seat there. And yeah, we're a mic down, so sorry. Just tell me when you want me to speak.
Great, thank you. I'll work through fairly briskly.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, yep, no, yeah. Yeah, let's go. Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak at this evening's meeting. I shouldn't take too long over this, but yeah, just to briefly run through the site context. You see the location plan there to the north of Birchill Lane and the east of the mountain, obviously directly southward of David Wilson's previous phase, which is part of the strategic allocation FR3A. We're looking at 100 up to 120 new homes based on the developable area that we've derived from the site. That would include the access, as you've seen, from the mountain. We'll talk to that in a moment. Open space, the potential for allotments, either on or off site, and play facilities, and improvements to the rights of way, the existing rights of way that bisect the site. And we can probably talk to the timescales a little bit later as well. Thank you. So there is just the site in context with the committed parcels, both David Wilson and Wayne Homes at the FR3A allocation. So you just see how the site now in red keys into that. As you've just seen, the access was previously shown further south and a simple priority T junction through some dialogue with Somerset Highways. That's now been amended, and what we now have is a fully compliant taper right turn lane. That's accommodated by widening that section of the mount using land within my client's control. So that will be a fully compliant access now with the right turn lane. That also allows for sufficient visibility displays, including the allowance for the respective heights along that section of the road. So it's entirely within either David Wilson's or Somerset Council's control, the affected land. We'll come on to this in a moment. The most significant impact, aside from a slight compressing of the developable area, is an increase in the amount of hedgerow that requires removal and replanting in order to sit backwards of those visibility splays. So just have a little bit of detail there, just to show that that's been tracked for refuse vehicle in line with Somerset standards. All of this information is now on the application file, and it's the substantive version. I should say that this is the one matter for which detailed approval is being sought, with all other matters being outlined. So those matters of layout, landscaping, scale, and appearance being reserved for a subsequent application. And there we see all of that in context with the revised illustrative master plan. And again, I stress the word illustrative, but it does input, obviously, all of the site constraints and opportunities. You'll see then the sort of landscape treatments in the periphery of the site. That's partially the ecological mitigation. Again, it follows the same principles applied and accepted in relation to the earlier phase to the north. You see in orange there the right-of-way, just to show how that intersects. Yeah, in terms of the hedgerow section, yeah, the intention there would be to remove and to replant with a suitable native species, and that's one of the less sensitive ecological margins to the site. There are more sensitive ones which remain essentially unchanged through these revised proposals. Just a quick summary of the technical consultees, and you'll see in that LLFA comment, just to put some additional colour to that, that seems to have arisen from a I must say, very rapid reconsultation for an LLFA response, which actually predated our submitting a technical response on drainage matters to some earlier comments that they raised. Those comments essentially applicable to both sets of proposals. So from our perspective and our engineers' perspective, we have responded to the earlier comments, but that hasn't yet kind of tracked through with the consultation process. We hope, based on the promptness of the previous response, that we might see those comments sooner rather than later. So that's why we are where we are in that respect. But you'll see most technical consultees issues have been resolved. Where they are outstanding, it's where either revised information hasn't yet elicited a response from them, or there are a couple of points where the ball is in our court, or rather the applicant's court, in as much as Natural England have requested some additional lighting modelling, which is being worked through at the moment, and only then can they obviously undertake their habitats regulation assessment. That's one that sits with us. The rest of it is largely getting there, I would say, through the consultation process. And just a quick summary of the anticipated planning obligations in line with previous phases. We'll be looking at 30% on-site affordable housing. The mix for that would be secured through the reserve matters in order that's the most up-to-date position. Public open space integrated within the scheme, including play facilities. We are eager to understand whether there is a desire for allotments on-site or potentially some expansion of local allotment provision elsewhere. You've obviously got allotments very close by at Birchall Lane. Transport infrastructure, again, we are awaiting a shopping list from the Highway Authority as to what that will entail, but provided those are reasonably justified requests, then whatever they need in that regard will also be forthcoming. Education contributions, those have been confirmed as early years and SEN rather than primary or secondary. Public rights of way surfacing improvements, those may be obligations, they may be conditions. That's something that we again need to put some more dialogue in with the local authority on. And finally, biodiversity net gain, statutory minimum of at least 10%. That might be obtained through a mixture of on-site and off-site credits. Again, it remains to be seen exactly what the final budget will be. Again, it will only be the reserve matters that tell us exactly what that figure is. So as I say, we are looking to resolve the final technical issues with this, and there is some information that does sit still with us in that regard on ecology, namely, but we are looking to wrap that up and progress this to the Somerset East Planning Committee in due course. We're very happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions? Right. CPRE first. Question. I know, obviously, soon. Yeah, I'm sure you have. Yeah.
Yes, I've got a question. We've visited the site, and I just want to mention at this point one concern we've got, that we noticed that there are very tall lampposts have been, more suitable to a town centre, have been placed. I wonder if we can get the thing up again, get it up again. Down the left-hand side on the B road, all down the hedge, all down that hedge, there are very, very tall. Okay, yes, that's right. All down there, and basically this rural country lane's been turned into a sort of urbanized landscape, but those lampposts, I don't think they're in the planning application, but they're there. They've been put there already. So I've done a bit of research, and as far as I can see, they appear to be related to the incorrect discharge of a condition on one of your sites above it.
Right.
And it's as if you've kind of sneaked in these huge lampposts ahead of this planning application.
I can certainly respond on that, yeah, and it's a very good question. I think this is where the planning process starts to bleed into the Section 278 highways process, which is obviously the kind of off-site works that aren't necessarily detailed through a planning application, but then subsequently agreed between a developer and the highway authority. To the best of my understanding, those works pertain solely to the phase to the north, the previous application, and have been added, as you indicate, sort of after the fact, as the developer works through the Section 278 process and discharges planning conditions. I do understand from Somerset Highways, and I think this is the other thing, is that there's maybe a little bit of a disconnect between Somerset Highways that advise on development management at the planning application stage and advise on adoptions, which is the very much the nuts and bolts and the physical stuff like lamp posts and light fittings. And yes, sometimes the ideas of the latter are perhaps somewhat beyond, let's say, what was perhaps anticipated at the application stage.
Our concern is that you've got these huge lampposts which are suitable for a town centre in a sort of completely rural area, and they're completely incongruous and unsuitable for a rural area, which is where you are. And I would have thought you should be taking these lampposts out before, you should be taking them out, I think. They're not in the planning application.
As I say, I understand your concern. There is a process that is followed with the Highway Authority. It's the Highway Authority fundamentally that will accept or reject or demand whatever infrastructure they consider appropriate. And I'm unfortunately not in a position really to judge them one way or the other for that. Obviously, I do appreciate that it is, very much on the periphery of the town. I think, without speaking for the local highway authority, there is an aspiration that that whole section becomes a 30-mile-an-hour zone, whether that's done through a formal regulation order or almost de facto because it's 30 once it's fully street lit, is, again, a matter for them to decide on. We'd personally support the regulation order to make absolutely clear that that is becoming a 30-mile-an-hour zone. But I think their aspiration.
Just one last point on this. I won't go on, but right across Somerset, there are housing estates being built, and I can't remember seeing in rural areas giant lampposts shoved into the hedges down the side of them. I'm trying to think of one. I can't think of one. I think it's poor design, really poor design, and doesn't reflect well on your company, in my view. I hope you take that into account and think about it anyway.
Thank you. Yes, of course.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, I've got the gentleman and lady behind. That's it. Yeah.
That's on already, yeah. Yeah, hi, I'm Ed. We live in the property that's going to be bounded by the whole... It's got a green light on there, yeah. A bit closer. So we're going to get bounded by the whole project. And I know we're continuously objecting because it's such a controversial site. But the main reason I'm here today is that there is a proposal to dig up Birchill Lane itself to put in some drainage. And I hope you can tell me otherwise. But it looks like you're going right across our driveway, which is going to completely cut off access to and from our property. For how long? We don't know. We haven't had anything in writing. You haven't given us any indication when it's going to start, how long it's going to start for, how long we're going to be cut off. So that's the main reason I'm here. Hopefully get some answers on that.
Well, that's certainly something that we can and will take away with us. The honest answer from my perspective is that I don't work for David Wilson Homes. I don't deal with their civil infrastructure.
Nor do I.
And and if there are remedial works that they're undertaking in that area, then we'll ensure that we take that away so that they can be in touch in that respect. I'm afraid I'm not in the detail, so I can't give you an answer this evening.
So going forward on that then, if there are any changes, can you let us know? We haven't had any response from emails or letters.
Yeah, let's talk after the meeting. Perhaps we can exchange contact details and then we can sort of have a line of communication.
Following on from what you're just asking, I'm speaking at this moment as a resident of Dragonfly Close, the first DWH development, and we very seldom get notification when there's going to be a road closure. The first we see is the sign on the road saying when it's going to happen. The chances of getting a letter, I'm just thinking in terms of your experience, this is typical. The communication is so poor between DWH and the local residents. Our main line of communication is to badger the site manager. I hate doing it. It's not fair on him. It's a very, very poor communication between local residents and the organisation that is doing the planning and execution. And because part of it is because Tithegrove is the main operative. And Tithegrove are on some sort of timeline to get everything done. And they're just not thinking about local people, the local residents at all. Their objective is to get their work done, their money in and out.
Guys, can you take that away with David and have a chat with David Wilson and find out what's going on some of that? Is that okay?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And can I
It's
just,
been writing beside me throughout.
the other thing I'd like to say about the new junctions, the proposed new junctions, that will make, with Birchall Lane, that will make, as I understand, 4 on that left-hand, on that side, going up into town, 4 on the right-hand side, going up into town. It is already a 30-mile-an-hour limit. That's been, the signs are up. People are supposed to abide by that. I would say 50% of the drivers abide by it. There are 50% who, they scoot past. It's highly dangerous. There's no footpath. There's no pavement for pedestrians. So what's the point of those lights? Because you normally get street lights where there is a footpath for pedestrians. It's very, very bad planning, and I don't know what you can do to stop people apart from putting speed bumps in. That, there needs to be other deterrents to slow people down.
No, I note your concerns in that respect. As I say, this revised junction arrangements come from dialogue directly with Somerset as Highway Authority. They are content. They have audited that design for safety, and they are content with it. I do take your point. I mean, there are pedestrian connections within the site, obviously, that will connect through via the right of way to provide an alternative pedestrian route without having to go out onto that road. But I do note your concern, obviously, about street lights and driver behaviour. The intention is to extend that 30 limit, but I do totally take your point.
So just to be clear, I mean, are you saying that Highways suggested that you should put these giant lampposts all the way down the side of, in the hedge, all the way down that lane?
It's the Highway Authority as the adopting authority that will prescribe what they want. I think it's probably not uncharitable to.
Is that what they prescribed?
To say that they will just take that advice, because you don't really argue at that stage, unfortunately. And so, it's very much what's prescribed by the Highway Authority is what happens.
And they have prescribed these giant lampposts. That's what you're saying?
To the best of my knowledge, with the previous phase, yes.
Can your colleague from David Wilson Homes confirm that Highways have prescribed these giant lampposts that are more suitable for a town centre?
I think we agreed earlier on we're going to find that out, okay? Yeah? Yeah, thanks. Yeah, please. Richard.
So looking at this map, areas 6 and 7 on the map were put in place as replacement bat habitat. This is to the north of this site. This is all part of, these are very important foraging areas for the Mells Bat SAC, which, by the way, contains 16 of our 18 native bats, so very, very important indeed. Areas 14 on the map, that little strip of land at the north of the site, is additional replacement bat habitat. Now, as we know, Mells is over to the left of this map in the west. The bats from Mells can fly over pretty much dark countryside all the way to this site to forage there. But of course, now the poor old bats, they don't like lights very much, particularly ones that are 20 lux, and as has been said, it's lit up like a football pitch. You make that comment there, number 4, area less sensitive in terms of bat habitat. Is that because basically you put those lights down, so you're going to basically stop the bats reaching the bat habitat that you've specifically put there in place? So now to reach the bat habitat, they're going to have to fly south of this, then go north, and then turn around and go west to reach their lovely habiting things. Or have you perhaps put those lights down the 3092, so that when you do the bat survey, which I note hasn't been submitted yet, surprise, surprise, there's no bats there anymore. How convenient. Your thoughts?
I mean, I think there's a couple of points there, just to clarify in relation to the relative sensitivity of bat habitats. My comment was in relation to that western hedgerow alongside the mount, as opposed to the existing linear features that go more kind of east-west, which I understand are the much more valuable, much more sensitive habitats. You're quite right, the previous phase did secure that mitigation land shown at 6 and 7. The strategy proposed here is obviously to buffer that with some planted areas and a suitable offset. We are currently in the process of modelling that for lighting in order to get to the 0.5 lux that will get through a regulation assessment.
But you've blocked the lights, but you've blocked the access with lights that are 20 lux, which is 100 times more than Natural England and Somerset Ecology say is right.
The irony is not lost on me that we are going through an inordinately expensive lighting modelling exercise to get to 0.5 lux in a worst case scenario on site, while the Highway Authority will specify whatever it wants on the highway.
Sorry, 40 times, not 200.
I'm afraid I don't have a compelling answer for you in that respect. But the point is noted. Obviously, Natural England will, in consultation with the county ecologist, assess our proposals, both in terms of adopted policy and in terms of the requirement of the habitat regs, and we will see where we get in that respect. I understand that, the constraints and the requirements have been obviously kind of rehearsed through previous applications, and that's formed the basis for the strategy here. We will see where we get in that respect.
Perhaps when you do the bat survey, you can perhaps have those lights turned off for a couple of weeks prior to it, so we actually get the real figures prior to the light blocking being put in place.
David Wilson Homes doesn't control those streetlights; they are controlled by the local authority. I don't think it's something we can really do is to look at switching them off.
I think that you find the requirements for 30 mile an hour is one street light per 200 metres. You've put 7 lights in a space of 150 metres. So I think you get away with turning at least 6 of them off and still be compliant with the road transport requirements.
I hear you and I understand what you're saying, but those streetlights are not controlled by David Wilson Homes. They were installed at the request of Somerset Council as the Highway Authority. That's what they asked for, that's what they got. They own, operate and maintain those streetlights. So
Can we move on from the lights, please? We've been ages talking about streetlights that no one, it's down to a local authority as far as I'm concerned. So can we move on from bats and lights, because they seem to be I think there's bigger issues that need to be discussed. Richard, have you got anything else?
Yes, could I perhaps flick up my slides, please? Thank you. So let's look at the road access. So this basically gives you the widths down as you can see, quite narrow lane. The new access is going to be basically at the back of Hope Farmhouse, where the road is currently around about 4.5 metres wide. Next slide, please. So you can see here that the diagrams that have been proposed, effectively they're going to double, because of the ghost lane, they're going to have to double the width of the road there from 4.5 metres to 9 metres. At the top of the splay, there's a 9-foot stone wall, and as you'll see, and right on the crest of the hill, there's a bend that sort of blocks visibility down it. Could you perhaps see the next slide, please? Bit of a larger view so you can see really what's happening here. So you've got the 9-metre road width, plus you allow for a bonnet length of 2.4 metres. This is as per the manual for streets. So effectively that you're going to be basically 6.9 metres inside the field before you get for the actual visibility splay. I'm sure they can just about make the visibility splay, but it's hardly ideal. You're going to have cars accelerating down a hill, and despite it being a 30 limit. And yeah, it's going to be quite interesting. The other interesting piece here is that, as you can see, the width of the B3092 is constantly changing. As mentioned before by the previous people, once the road is wider than 6 metres, people tend to speed up. So here it's narrow at the mount, then it goes wide, in, out, in, out, in, out. It's quite interesting driving down there. But one of the other things is these derelict farm buildings at the north end of the site. There's enough room there for 9 dwellings, looking at the average density. Those derelict buildings, despite being offered for sale to the developers, have been refused. It is government policy that brownfield land is developed first. Not the case here. David Wilson Homes are leaving stranded a set of derelict farm buildings in the middle of their 3 sites, a dangerous playground for children and an eyesore on a gateway to the town, just like Western Vinyls on Vallis Road. It's been offered to them, but they've refused to buy it because no doubt it's more profitable to develop our green fields. However, if it is developed, yet another access road will be needed on an increasingly congested road. This land should be included in the development site. The allotment provision for the 120 dwellings is just 1.5 plots, a token gesture. The transport assessment is interesting. For travel patterns, they've cherry-picked the Mount and the area centred on the Marston Industrial Estate as comparable sites. Car ownership is less than 1 car per dwelling on those sites. Looking at the 4 sites being developed to the south of Frome, the average car number is 2.33 per dwelling. These dubious data points have enabled them to significantly underplay the traffic volumes from the site and the impact on the wider road network. We see this time and again from developers, and no one seems to pull them up on it. And we saw it in the last case. There's a table in the pack which gives the walking and cycling times to various locations in Frome. All are underestimates. In the latest submission, they share a travel map that is close to the truth, that contradicts many of their own claimed walking and cycling times. They can't even get their own story straight. Perhaps the level of disinformation in the transport assessment is related to the level of unsustainability of the transport reality. No bus connections are planned. Walking distances are problematic. This will be very much another car-dependent development. Frome Town Council fought hard to get the FR3 sites to work together in a master plan. I guessed Wayne Holmes didn't mention that they plan to add this development later on. It's been reserved as an option for some years. All to, no doubt, to water down any commitments to provide community infrastructure and proper joined-up planning, but it does preserve their profitability. Please can Frome Town Council call this into Planning Committee East, and it's good to see that it'll be after the SGC decision has been announced. But overall, the cumulative traffic impact needs to be taken into account.
Thank you, Richard. Sue, you want to?
Yeah, thank you. I think also this proposal really needs to be seen in the wider context that there are already 319 houses being developed adjacent to this site, and then we have 198 at the Curo development over towards Selwood, and then the potential Selwood Garden community. That's an awful lot of houses and cars that are going to use the B3092 to be driving into Frome. We know that the road and sewage network is already creaking on the south side of Frome. What will the congestion be like on the butts? With so many more cars from those 520 already approved new homes. Then we've got sewage releases. Lower Keyford and Adderwell are the worst performers in Frome. They have both discharged sewage for almost 40 hours each so far this year. What will it end up being like when we've got 420 new occupied homes? Before I discuss my fundamental concerns about drainage, I want to just mention something on transport and sustainability. I would just like to say, as someone who lives on Birchall Lane, the current proposal will make that exit onto the B3092 more dangerous. The visibility will be reduced because currently you spot the cars where the ghost lane is going to be proposed to be. So it's just making it more dangerous. And it's not just the few people who live on Birchall Lane, it's all the allotment holders as well. And I really fail to understand why the developer is not connecting this site to their next one, Francis Fields. They even have a road coming halfway down the back area to, and you'd only need to go another 40 metres to connect these two sites together. They say they can't because it's a bat replacement habitat, but they just don't need to light the road. Although, because they've just lit up the B3092 like a football pitch, I'm not sure there's going to be any bats anyway. So why aren't they connecting the sites together and making it better for everyone? Safer for road users and a better connected site for those who might live there in the future. Richard has already mentioned some of the things about walking and cycling, but this site was not included in the local plan update because, in part, it would be a car-led development. David Wilson Homes are claiming people would regularly walk and cycle into Frome. In Dragonfly Close, evidently about 5 people regularly do this. This proposed development will be a further 400 metres away, and people would have to walk up another hill to get into Frome. For cyclists, it would be another 800 metres along existing cycle routes. The developers' times for cycling and walking are seriously optimistic and in places just plain wrong, and take no account of the hilly nature of Frome, one-way streets and safe cycle routes. When I cycle into Frome, from the edge of this site, it takes 50% longer than claimed. The proposal also makes statements about active travel infrastructure, but provides no details. The only cycle route shown is onto the B3092. Turning right and cycling uphill on this part of the road, it's dangerous. I wouldn't do it. They indicate cycle access into Francis Fields along the public footpath, which they have just resurfaced, but it's not wide enough to be considered a combined foot and cycle path. And just a bit more on sustainability. It would be very easy to read this design and access statement and think that the proposal is for a zero carbon development, but it actually says it's only an aim to be low carbon. Barratt, the David Wilson Homes parent company, are already building what they call zero-bill homes for occupation this year. But yet in Frome, they're installing gas boilers. Why is this? Other proposals are also token. Richard mentioned the allotments. The area proposed is only equivalent to 1.5 full-size allotments. It's just token. In contrast, the other proposal you heard about tonight, it's offering 10 times that amount of space for allotments. I really think if Frome Town Council is minded to support this development, you should insist at outline for a commitment for this to be one of Barratt's exemplar zero carbon projects that they are very busy doing elsewhere in the country. So I'd now like to move to drainage, where we have some very serious concerns about this proposed proposal. And as such, we commissioned expert reports last year. These showed that existing properties would be put at increased risk of surface water flooding, in direct contradiction of the National Planning Policy Framework. An updated drainage map was provided last month, but without any supporting documentation. Some supporting documentation did become available yesterday, and I only managed to see it this morning. The obvious changes, and actually, can we please move to the master plan slide, which shows the attenuation ponds? Thank you. So you can see the attenuation ponds marked with the number 2. The obvious changes are that the attenuation pond slightly to the east has been reduced in size, so it no longer cuts the outflow line from the site above. And the overall runoff rates have been increased. But the outflow rate for the pond to the south, which is directly above our house, has been decreased by 20%, and the maximum water level is now only 32 centimetres, which is less than it is supposed to be for the freeboard. We were concerned before. I am even more concerned now, and this is putting an unacceptable increase in the risk of flooding to existing properties. We await the LLFA's comments, and they will only have just seen this document, presumably, and we will be commissioning a further expert review of this latest report. And my remaining comments are still valid, regardless of this new report. The lower pond is only 10 metres, that's only a bit more than the width of this room, from our house wall. And that 10 metres includes hedge and road. And the maximum water level of that pond is 80 centimetres above our floor level. We are on a slope here. This leaves only a few metres of of field between the pond and the hedge. Very little space for any exceedance measures to be put in to protect houses or the hedge. And then beyond the development, the proposal is to install an outflow line along Birchall Lane for 80 metres, as Ed mentioned. This road is less than 3 metres wide and will need to be dug down to about 4 metres, and that's from your documents, to enable Pond 1 to be able to drain through a 1.2 metre diameter concrete pipe. I fail to see how that can be managed without destroying the hedges on either side. So that would be about 160 metres of hedges. They're already wanting to take out 150 on the west side as well. And that, in doing that, you're going to be blocking the entrance to the house at Selwood for, I would think, a considerable period of time. I don't really think that's appropriate. Somerset Ecology has actually said hedgerows should have a 10-metre buffer. If the ponds were moved 10 metres uphill from their current locations, there could be space to put in exceedance measures for the attenuation pond and optimise the outflow line location with no need to dig up Birchall Lane for 80 metres. It would mean slightly fewer houses, so it needs to be considered now at outline. There are also issues with the foul sewage. The pumping station is located right on the development boundary. And that's at point 8. You can see it in a little corner there. It's shoved in right on the boundary. It is also only 3 metres from an attenuation pond. Any leakage from that sewage pumping station risks overflowing into the pond and onto Birchall Lane. If that pond were to overflow during heavy rain, sewage contaminated water would flow in the river. If the pond overtopped at the same time, it would flow straight at the 2 houses there and go through their gardens. In dry weather, it might be even worse. It would create an open sewer in the permanent water below the pond outflow. In contrast, the sewage pump at Francis Fields is in a completely clear area with no risk of any impact on the pond or properties. There needs to be exceedance routes around this pumping station to protect the pond and properties, and this again needs to be considered now at outline, as it will impact the number and layout of housing. So to sum up, I urge you, Frome Town Council, not to support this proposal at this stage. The south side of Frome has already had enough development with 520 new homes. The details of this proposal really do not stand up to scrutiny, particularly in the area of drainage, where attenuation ponds and sewage pumps are being pushed far too close to development boundaries, allowing no space for even the most basic safety mitigation features. Other developments in the area are not doing this. The proposal puts houses at increased risk of flooding, blocks access to a house during drainage construction, and risks destroying hundreds of metres of hedges. And the developer wants to install yet another junction onto the B3092, when it would be safer to exit through their adjacent Francis Fields development. The development is portrayed as sustainable, but in reality, it would be car-led. In terms of timing, the wider impact of increased traffic and sewage from all the current developments need to be assessed, and the effectiveness of the 4 drainage ponds uphill needs to be understood before further development should be supported in this area. But if you are minded to support this development in the near term, it is critical that it is not done until a viable drainage strategy that does not risk flooding, increasing the risk of flooding to existing houses, has been verified by an independent expert. And this needs to be considered at outline, as it will impact the number and location of houses. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. I don't know if you guys, anything to...
I wouldn't mind picking up just a couple of points. I'll try and keep it succinct. Yes, obviously I am not a drainage engineer. Our engineers' designs at this stage relate to design standards, and ultimately that independent expert is the LLFA, who we will obviously require the endorsement from when they've reviewed all of the submission in full to have a successful scheme. In terms of the layout, I would emphasise obviously that, say for the access, that is illustrative at this point because it's an outline planning application. And the reason for that basin's redesign, or rather the drawing was issued because the basin features obviously on a site layout with the previous access, and that needed to be updated. And it also relates to the LLFA comments, as I understand it, some of the calculations that they required. To pick up on the point of traffic, again, we anticipate car use as a factor. Amongst other modes of travel, that's not a secret. Hence, it's providing car parking, committing to car parking in line with adopted standards. But there are opportunities, in our view, for active travel. And as I mentioned earlier, we will secure planning contributions, obligations, where enhancements to local infrastructure are justified, and that will include, there is a request for the upgrading of the public rights of way. Which would, I assume, address this shared surface 3-metre footway, cycleway point. In terms of the access design, again, the visibility is designed to design standards. It's been through a safety review by Somerset Council and endorsed as an appropriate approach. I would just pick up on the point raised in relation to the derelict buildings to the north of the site. Obviously, whatever the commercial background is not something that I am party to. However, I'm not aware of any policy in national policy that applies a sequential approach to use of brownfield land. It's broadly supportive, but even if it were, agricultural buildings wouldn't meet that definition in of themselves. Which probably brings me around to sort of a summary point, and I do appreciate the concerns from experience with the cumulative effect of development locally. As you're aware, every application needs to be considered on its individual merits. And I'd just like to end on that point. Simon, I don't know if there's anything else from your perspective you'd like to just address. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for all that information, both you guys. That was very helpful. And obviously some of the concerns about Birchill Lane really haven't been answered. And they do sound very concerning. And we've heard from Sue before about the unsuitable attenuation ponds, and that doesn't seem to have improved. That seems to have been made worse, so that is a real worry. It seems like it's a development for the sake of a development. the walking access, to say, we've been looking at a map for a really long time now of your site, and to say that that right of way is going to be likely to be used by pedestrians. I mean, if you were living at the front there by the main road, it's so unlikely that you would cross right down to that right of way and then go back up. You would try and make your way up the road, and it just doesn't seem like a suitable site for pedestrians to walk into the nearest amenities to me. It just to say, oh, there's a right of way there and we'll make that better. How likely are you to walk all the way over there just to get a safer route? It should be on a place where there is a pavement and a safe route. So it's really, I mean, I've cycled down that road, and people go very fast, and yeah, you're right about coming out and turning right and going up the hill. I wouldn't do it either. It is at the point where people are speeding up and leaving Frome, and obviously this is subject to highways and how they would make that safe, but everybody who lives around here looking at that now thinks that's not safe for walking or cycling. I would say that would be my guess. And so therefore you've got to make the question, is this the right place for a housing development, that you're being asked to consider those two things as a priority?
Yeah, I think what concerned me a bit, and maybe something we can pick up internally with Somerset Highways, is this disconnect between the planning side of Somerset Highways and the implementation of lighting particularly. I mean, the comments about those big lamp standards in the hedgerow and the impact they've had on bat pathways and so on, it just seems like there's two halves of the same department aren't talking to each other, and maybe we can drop a line to somebody to see if we can bang some heads together to get something organised properly around that.
Do you want anything now? Okay. To me, this whole drainage thing is still there, hasn't gone away. And to me, it is absolutely critical that I can't make a decision on this personally until I know about this whole drainage thing. I mean, Sue, we've met God knows how many times about this, and until we hear from the LLFA, I can't really I can't get my head around it. At the end of the day, it seems as though if what we're hearing is correct, and those attenuation ponds potentially can overflow, then that's a disaster, and we shouldn't go anywhere near it. So we really need to hear from that first. I also get about the walking and cycling up the B3092, and again, it's imperative that any links within these sites up through Dragonfly Close into the school are suitable for walking and cycling in tandem. The access onto the site is really up to, I'm not sure if Highways have actually come up with a definitive on it as yet. I haven't seen it if they have. So I don't know, there's too many things outstanding for me at the moment that, and this is about the third time we've looked at this, until we get something definitive from those statutories, then I think we really do need it before we can make a decision. That's my view. I don't know what anyone else thinks. But Jane, have you got anything else to add?
Always, Steve, always. Yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying is right. I mean, it does seem from listening to Richard, etc., perhaps with the exception of the couple who live right in the middle of it, that there is potentially, if the drainage is okay, if the highways issues are sorted out and the connectivity and it's sustainable, then there's a potential there for the application to be supported. But we've got to be 100% sure about the impacts of the drainage and the highways and try and sort out the lighting, which I have to agree is quite strange. But yeah, at this point in time, I don't think I can recommend a response.
There's no way these people's access at their house can be blocked for anything more than half an hour to an hour at a time. I mean, that I've lived through that, but you can't be blocked off for a week or something like that. It's not feasible. Yeah.
Just for an example, on the Curo development, they put in a drainage pipe underneath Little Keyford Lane. The people who live up by Keyford Farmhouse, they were basically all of their road was dug up for 3 months. And they had to actually drive over basically a field, an unbuilt, like a field being developed to get out onto Sandys Hill, by McDonald's. That couldn't happen with Selwood House here. There's no other way out.
When Persimmon were building Edmund Park, they put a detour in for us, so it's not beyond the wit of man to sort something out. Either you put a massive great metal plate over it and put it up and put it down. So
but
it's not beyond the wit of man to sort that out.
But a metal plate, the width of the road over 80 metres, there'd be a lot of it.
No, it is.
Jane, are you suggesting that we defer, or are you requiring a vote at this stage we object, or because there isn't enough information?
I think you could do either. You might want to discuss amongst yourselves which you think is a more appropriate way to go. If we object now, and the responses from the statutory consultees don't support our objection, then we might want to think about looking at that objection again. I don't know. It's how councillors feel about it, really. I think, well, I suppose the question for Chris really is, are the issues that have been raised in terms of the flooding, the highways, the access into the property, are they things that you are prepared to look at in more detail, or is that your submission now? Is there any more leeway for anything to change?
I would say at this point in time, we have submitted all the information that we currently intend to submit. That said, we are very much beholden to what responses come back, and we will provide any and all detail we need to satisfy those. I mean, as you identify, those are very much technical matters. They're beyond my expertise to provide comprehensive answers on, which is why we have other consultants. And so, yeah, we will provide whatever detail is necessary. We have two, in Highways and the LLFA, very important statutory consultees that we are yet to see an updated complete consultation response from. That will be telling in itself, in terms of the kind of subsidiary point around actual construction practice. As I'm sure you're aware, that's commonplace to deal with by condition, and it's not something that I'm in a position to provide any real detail or forecast on now, because it's all kind of post permission stage. But hopefully that answers your question. I know it's not the most satisfactory response for purposes of adopting a clear position, but that's about the best I can do at the moment.
Yeah, I suppose if we've deferred on it before and some of those points haven't been addressed, why is it here at this particular time? You definitely have the answer to that, don't you?
I do have the answer to that. The reason it's here at this particular time is, as a statutory consultee, we get 21 days to respond after we've been consulted. The problem I find quite a lot is that although we're expected to reply within 21 days, other statutory consultees, such as the LLFA and the Highways Authority, don't respond that quickly. So we do quite often find ourselves in a situation where we haven't got the responses from, if you like, the technical experts. And, to be fair, that isn't these guys' fault. That's how it works. So yes, we are in a position where we can either say, well, we'd like to wait until we see the responses from the technical consultees, or we can object on the basis that the highways and drainage issues have not been resolved satisfactorily.
So it seems it's a choice of two things. Either one is defer, or two, it's sort of minded to object, subject to.
We can't be all over that expertise opinion that's coming back from those two bodies at all. So yes, we could defer and say that. Do we ultimately think that it's the right place for a development? In that case, then it's object. And that's the way I'm feeling from tonight. I suppose partly that's due to frustration that some of these really serious flooding things haven't been addressed, but also I can't see how that proposed footpath access is suitable if that's all what's going to be the only way to get there. Walking into really what is not a brilliant part of town for amenities. It's okay, but if you've got to walk all that way, it is going to be a really car-driven point. And in that case, yeah, I don't really see it as a suitable site.
So
I'm objecting.
You're objecting.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm objecting.
Right. Yeah. So can we have a formal vote on that then, please? I think we're pretty clear now. Someone.
I propose that we object to this.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Are you happy for me to draft that objection based on the discussions and then send it round to you for agreement?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think we still want to see response from the LLK and highways, and because if it is going to Somerset East, which it probably will, then we need to be prepared to say what we feel.
Yeah, I think, Richard, you asked us to ask it to be referred, but I'm pretty sure this one will just go automatically anyway. Yeah, and then once, it won't go to committee until such time as the officers have had those responses from the statutory consultees. So anything that comes out of those responses, we can then reflect when we go to the Somerset Planning Committee meeting in that respect.
Can I just also add that we would also want to see no gas boilers, air source heat pumps, solar panels, all those things on this site should it go forward. Yeah. Great. Thank you very much. I think that's it for tonight, isn't it? Next meeting? I have no idea when the next meeting is.
No,
When is the next meeting? Have we got a next meeting? It's 1st of April? Next meeting, 2nd of April 2006. 2026 then.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for coming, and sorry for having to wait for so long.